The restaurant was always quiet on weekdays, but that afternoon a strange feeling hung in the air, as if something important was about to happen. The staff moved around in their usual way, cleaning glasses, arranging plates, and checking the reservations list. Everything seemed normal until the front door opened and a tall, well-dressed man stepped inside. The moment he walked in, the atmosphere changed completely. People lowered their voices, waiters straightened their backs, and even the chef peeked out from the kitchen window to see who had arrived. It was Mr. Cade, the billionaire who rarely appeared in public. Everyone in the city knew his name. He was famous for his huge business empire, but he was also known for being extremely private. Some said he never smiled. Some said he spoke only when necessary. Others claimed he had the power to shut down a business with just one sentence. Because of this, most people avoided being near him. No one wanted to make a mistake in front of him. The manager rushed toward him with a nervous smile, trying to give the best welcome he could. But the billionaire barely looked at him. His eyes scanned the room slowly, as if judging every detail: the walls, the tables, the people. Many customers felt uncomfortable. They recognized him, and they knew that whenever he showed up somewhere, something unusual happened. But one person did not react the way everyone else did. Mira, a young waitress who had just finished cleaning a table, looked up and saw the billionaire. She paused for a moment, surprised, but she did not show fear. Like the others, she had seen many different types of customers: angry ones, sad ones, rude ones, and kind ones. In her mind, he was simply another person who needed to be served. She tied her hair again, fixed her apron, and carried on with her work. The billionaire noticed that. His eyes followed her briefly, curious. Most people froze around him, but this girl did not even lose her balance. She continued working with calm hands and a gentle expression. She moved from one table to another, humming softly under her breath, completely unaware that a man worth billions was watching her with interest. The manager, noticing his gaze, panicked inside. He whispered to Mira, telling her to be extra careful and not to make any mistakes. But she simply nodded and smiled. She had learned long ago that fear only made people clumsy. Calmness was her strength. When she approached the billionaire's table to take his order, she did not tremble or rush her words. Instead, she greeted him politely with the same warm tone she used for everyone else. This surprised him even more. Most people stuttered in his presence, but this waitress spoke clearly, almost peacefully. He studied her face for a moment, as if trying to understand what made her different. There was no fear in her eyes, only kindness and a quiet confidence. She reminded him of someone he once knew, long before he became a powerful man. While Mira walked back to the kitchen with his order, the other staff members whispered among themselves. They wondered why the billionaire kept looking at her. Some were scared for her, thinking she might accidentally upset him. Others were simply amazed by her calmness. Mira, however, felt nothing unusual. She did not know the stories people told about him. She only cared about doing her job well. She moved gracefully through the dining room, humming again as she arranged cutlery and wiped the tables. And each time she passed by, the billionaire watched her a little more closely. Something about her caught his attention, a softness, a hidden story, maybe even a quiet strength. Whatever it was, he felt drawn to it. The other customers continued whispering, and the tension in the restaurant remained thick. But Mira's gentle humming slowly softened the atmosphere. Even if she didn't realize it, she had no idea that this simple afternoon would change her life forever. The billionaire sat at his table, tapping one finger gently against the polished wood. It was a quiet rhythm, almost unnoticeable, but it showed something unusual. He was thinking. People who knew him said he never wasted a second on anything unnecessary. He always knew what he wanted, and he never hesitated. But now, something in the restaurant had slowed him down, almost as if he had forgotten the world for a brief moment. That something was Mira. As she moved from table to table, The billionaire's sharp eyes followed her steps. He wasn't watching her the way ordinary customers stared at a waitress. No, there was a deeper curiosity in his gaze, as if he was trying to read her like a puzzle with missing pieces. Mira didn't notice. She was too busy finishing her tasks. She greeted customers, refilled glasses, delivered dishes, and even cracked small jokes to lighten the mood. Although the billionaire's presence had made the entire room stiff and uneasy, Mira seemed unaffected. She continued humming softly under her breath, creating a small bubble of calm around herself. The billionaire leaned back in his chair, studying her more carefully. Her movement was neither hurried nor slow. She kept a steady rhythm, like someone who knew how to balance pressure without letting it break her. He admired that, even if he didn't show it. He had spent years surrounded by people who feared him or wanted something from him. Employees, investors, business partners, everyone tried to impress him, flatter him, or avoid his anger. But this waitress acted as if he were an ordinary man. Someone who needed service, not respect based on money or power. He found it refreshing. The manager approached the billionaire again, nervously adjusting his tie. "Sir, is everything to your liking?" he asked, hoping nothing had gone wrong. The billionaire ignored the question. Instead, he asked something unexpected. "How long has she worked here?" The manager blinked, confused. "Who, sir?" "The waitress," the billionaire replied, his eyes fixed on Mira, the one who doesn't tremble. The manager swallowed hard. "Ah, Mira. She has been with us for 8 months, sir. She's hardworking, quiet, and, well, she's different." "Different how?" the billionaire asked, still watching her. "She doesn't complain," the manager said. "She doesn't get nervous. She just keeps going, no matter how stressful things get." The billionaire raised an eyebrow, intrigued even more. The two men talked. Mira carried a tray of drinks to a table near the window. As she passed the piano, old, dusty, and nearly forgotten, her eyes drifted toward it for just a second. The billionaire noticed the glance. It was quick, barely half a heartbeat, but it was enough to reveal something hidden, a memory, a longing, or maybe a pain. He leaned forward, suddenly alert. When Mira returned to the counter, she caught the billionaire looking at her again. This time, she noticed. Their eyes met briefly. Mira felt a strange chill, not from fear, but from the weight of his gaze. His eyes were sharp but not unkind. She quickly looked away and continued working, but the billionaire didn't look away. He watched the way her fingers brushed crumbs off a table, the care she used to arrange a napkin, and the soft focus in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. There was precision in her movements, almost like the way a musician adjusts their posture before playing. That thought echoed inside his mind. A musician. He wondered if she had once been one. The restaurant began to fill with quiet murmurs again, as customers relaxed slightly. But the billionaire remained lost in his observations. For the first time in months, his mind drifted away from business, away from numbers and deadlines, towards something more human. Why did a simple waitress interest him so deeply? He didn't know yet, but he felt there was a story behind her quiet smile, a story she didn't talk about, a story that shaped the calmness she carried like a shield, and he suddenly wanted to uncover it. He didn't realize it then. But this curiosity would soon push him to make a decision that would shock everyone in the room, including Mira herself. The old piano sat in the corner of the restaurant like a forgotten memory, covered in dust and surrounded by empty chairs. Most customers never noticed it. Even the staff barely remembered it was there. But that afternoon, the billionaire's eyes kept drifting toward it, and then back to Mira. Something inside him was forming a connection, a thought he couldn't ignore. He watched her as she delivered plates to a family seated near the window. Her smile was genuine, her hands steady, and her voice soft. But every now and then, her eyes moved toward that piano, just for a moment, as if checking whether it was still there, as if the sight of It caused a small ache in her heart. The billionaire noticed every detail. After finishing her tasks, Mira walked past the piano again. Her steps slowed slightly, and her humming stopped. She didn't touch the piano, didn't even lean toward it. But there was an invisible pull, as if part of her wanted to approach it. But another part held her back. That was enough for the billionaire. He placed his napkin down and raised his hand to call her. The manager rushed forward immediately. Double quote, "Sir, can I help you?" he asked nervously. "No," the billionaire said firmly. "I want her." The manager turned pale. "Myra, yes, of course. I'll send her at once." Mira arrived a moment later, wiping her hands on her apron. She smiled politely, unaware of what he wanted. "How may I help you, sir?" The billionaire didn't answer directly. Instead, he pointed to the piano in the corner. His voice was steady, but there was a strange intensity beneath it. "Do you know how to play that?" Myra froze. Her smile faded a little. Her eyes widened slightly, then quickly softened, as if she was trying to hide something. She looked at the piano not with excitement, but with a quiet fear mixed with longing. "I used to," she whispered. "A long time ago." "That wasn't my question," the billionaire replied. "Can you play it?" She hesitated. Her hands suddenly felt heavy. Her heart began to race. Memories she tried to bury started rising up without permission. "I can," she finally said, "but I don't perform anymore." The billionaire's expression didn't change. "I want you to play," he said simply. The restaurant went silent. Customers stopped eating. Forks paused mid-air. The staff stared in disbelief. No one had expected this. People asked Mira for extra napkins, drink refills, or the bill butt. Never this. And from a billionaire? It felt unreal. "Sir," the manager stuttered, stepping forward. "Mira is not a performer. She is a waitress. If you'd like entertainment, we can." "I didn't ask you," the billionaire interrupted coldly. His eyes remained locked on Mira. "I asked her." Mira's throat tightened. She didn't know how to refuse someone like him. But more than that, she didn't know if she wanted to refuse. The piano was a doorway she had closed years ago, after life pushed her away from everything she loved. Touching it again felt like reopening an old wound. "Please," she said softly, trying to maintain calm. "I'm really not. I will leave this restaurant right now," the billionaire sighed, leaning back in his chair. "If you choose not to play." Shock spread across the room like a wave. The manager nearly choked. Losing a billionaire customer could ruin the restaurant's reputation overnight. Every employee looked at Mira with silent, pleading eyes. But Mira wasn't thinking about the restaurant. She was thinking about her own heart, shaking at the thought of playing again. She walked slowly toward the piano, each step feeling heavier than the last. The customers watched her as if witnessing a scene from a movie. Her hands trembled slightly as she brushed the dust off the top of the piano. The billionaire's gaze never left her. Mira took a deep breath. Her fingers hovered over the keys, but she didn't press them yet. The air around her felt thick, filled with expectation and fear. She could feel every heartbeat echoing in her chest. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then, gently, she touched the first key. A single note rang out soft, shaky, but full of emotion. And in that instant, the entire restaurant fell completely silent. Mira kept her eyes closed as the first note faded into the air. It trembled like a fragile secret trying to escape her heart. She knew everyone was watching, but for a moment, she tried to imagine she was alone. Just her and the piano. Just like the old days. But the room's silence was heavy, waiting, pressing against her chest. Her fingers hovered over the keys again. She could feel the old muscle memory waking up inside her, like a sleeping bird fluttering its wings after years of stillness. She wanted to play. She wanted to run away. Both feelings crashed into each other, making her hands shake. When she finally opened her eyes, She saw her reflection on the black piano surface, nervous, older, and tired, yet still holding a small spark she thought she had lost forever. A spark of the person she used to be. Behind her, the billionaire watched carefully. His face had not changed since she first sat down, but his eyes held something different now, an understanding. Or maybe recognition. As if he had guessed there was a story behind her silence. "Take your time," he said softly. His voice surprised her. It wasn't the voice of a cold, powerful man demanding entertainment. It was almost gentle, almost human. Mira nodded slightly, even though she didn't trust her voice enough to speak. Her hands settled on the keys again, this time with a more familiar touch. She let her fingers glide gently, not pressing yet, just feeling the cool surface. Memories rushed back: her first lesson at age 6, her teacher's smile, her mother clapping after every practice, the long nights of rehearsing, the competitions, the joy, the fear, the tears. And then the memory she never wanted to relive. One that stole music from her life. Her chest tightened. Her breath became uneven. The piano blurred in front of her as her eyes filled with tears. She didn't want anyone to see, but she swallowed hard and blinked the tears away. She had made it this far. She could not fall apart now. She took a deep breath and pressed another key. This time the note was stronger, clearer. A small ripple of emotion passed through the room. Customers leaned forward without meaning to. Even the chefs in the kitchen grew quiet, listening. But Myra didn't start playing yet. She was searching inside herself, looking for the courage to continue. The billionaire leaned slightly forward in his chair. He wasn't impatient. He was curious. He had seen many talented people, many performers, many artists, but something about Myra was different. Her hesitation wasn't about skill. It came from a wound so deep it had rewired her entire being. Finally, she whispered to herself, "Just one more time." She played a simple chord. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, but with heart. The notes blended together like soft footsteps. She wasn't performing for the restaurant or the billionaire. She was playing for the version of herself she lost. She reached the next chord, and suddenly her hand froze. Her breath caught. A flash of memory struck her: a bright stage, blinding lights, applause, and then the accident that changed everything. The heartbreak that followed. The silence that swallowed her for years. Her fingers trembled again. She almost pulled away from the piano, but she felt a presence behind her. The billionaire had stood up and taken one step closer, though he remained a respectful distance away. His voice came out barely above a whisper. "You're not broken," he said. Mira didn't look at him, but something in his tone, steady, certain, supported her like an invisible hand. She closed her eyes again, and this time she let her fingers move without thinking. Slow notes filled the air, delicate like falling snowflakes. They weren't perfect, they weren't strong, but they were honest. Every sound carried a piece of her pain, her hope, her memories. The restaurant transformed into a quiet world of emotion. The customers forgot their meals. Phones were lowered. Conversations stopped. Mira kept playing, letting the music rise slowly, softly, like a wounded bird finally stretching its wings. When she reached the last note, she let it linger, trembling in the silent restaurant. Then she lifted her hands from the keys and sat still. It felt as if the room was holding its breath. She had returned to music for the first time in years, and the billionaire knew this was only the beginning. The final note of Myra's hesitant melody still hung in the air when she pulled her hands back from the keyboard. She felt exhausted, even though she had played only a few simple chords. Her heart beat fast, and her palms were damp with sweat. It felt like she had opened a door she had kept locked for years, and now she wasn't sure if she wanted to step inside or slam it shut again. The restaurant was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that made Mira uncomfortable, not because she feared judgment, but because silence often reminded her of the night that changed everything. She swallowed hard and forced herself to breathe. The billionaire stood watching her, his expression unreadable. Some customers shifted in their seats. Others stared at her with wide eyes. But Mira kept her gaze down, staring at the piano keys, as if they might suddenly explain why she agreed to play at all. She didn't understand herself in that moment. Why did she listen to a stranger? Why did she touch the piano after so long? Why did she allow her past to spill into the room like uninvited light? "Mira," the billionaire finally said, his voice calm yet commanding. "Play something more." Her breath caught. She shook her head slightly. I don't think I can." "You already did," he replied, stepping closer. "And you did not break." His words felt like both comfort and challenge. Mira looked away. She didn't want him to see the fear in her eyes. She wasn't afraid of him, she was afraid of herself. The manager approached quickly, whispering, "Sir, please, she's not." The billionaire lifted one hand, silencing him instantly. Then he turned his attention back to Mira. "There's something in you that belongs to this piano. Don't deny it because of old pain." Mira bit her lip. Old pain? He didn't know anything about her life. About the loss that shattered her future. About the night she could no longer hear applause because the world had become filled with sirens and crying and decisions she never wanted to make. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "Playing again. It brings back things I'm not ready to face." The billionaire nodded slowly. "Sometimes the only way forward is through what scares you the most." Mira blinked. She wasn't expecting wisdom from a man known for being cold and unforgiving. But maybe people weren't always what their reputation said. Maybe deep inside everyone, there was more. Still, she hesitated. She rested her fingers lightly on the keys again. They felt familiar, like an old friend she once trusted. But touching them also felt like reopening a wound. The customers watched her closely, but not in a harsh way. They were drawn into the moment, sensing something powerful beneath the surface. Even the kitchen staff had stopped working. The smell of cooked food filled the air, but no one's mind was on their plates. Mira pressed a few more keys, testing, feeling, searching. Each note grew slightly stronger, slightly clearer. But she still wasn't playing a real song, just sounds, just pieces. The billionaire walked around the piano slowly, stopping where she couldn't avoid seeing him. He didn't speak. He just observed, waiting, giving her space to find her courage. After a long moment, he said quietly, "Play what you used to play. Not for me, for yourself." Mira's throat tightened. There was one piece she always played when she needed comfort. A piece she played for someone she loved deeply. A piece she had promised herself she would never touch again after losing that person. Her fingers hovered above the starting notes. She closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed. The restaurant seemed to fade into the background until only the piano existed. Then very softly, she began. The first notes were shaky. Not because she lacked skill, but because emotion clogged her chest. The melody drifted out like a forgotten dream returning to life. It was fragile and beautiful, carrying sadness and warmth in equal measure. As she played, something inside her loosened. Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. Her fingers moved more confidently now, remembering the path they had once known. By heart. The billionaire exhaled quietly, as if relieved. Customers leaned back, amazed at how different she sounded now, how full of soul the music was. The melody grew deeper, richer, more emotional. Every rise and fall of the tune felt like Mira's heart speaking after years of silence. And then something strange happened. The room began to change. People stopped shifting, stopped whispering, stopped breathing loudly. A quiet stillness filled the space. Not heavy or tense, but peaceful. Mira didn't just play music. She changed the room. She muted it completely with one rising. Trembling, beautiful song. She didn't see the billionaire's reaction, but she felt the world listening. The last notes of Mira's song drifted through the air like a warm breath on a winter morning. They wrapped around every person in the restaurant, soft and gentle, then slowly faded into a silence that felt almost sacred. Mira kept her hands on the keys long after the sound disappeared. She was afraid that if she moved too quickly, the moment would break and she would fall apart. Inside her chest, something was stirring, something she had locked away for years. Her heart beat fast, not from fear this time, but from a strange mix of relief and longing. She had forgotten how it felt to let music speak for her. She had forgotten that her fingers still remembered the path, even if her mind doubted. When she finally lifted her hands, her fingers were trembling. She sat still, unable to look at anyone. She wasn't ready to face their eyes, their questions, or their judgment. She felt vulnerable, exposed, as if she had opened her heart on the piano keys and let everyone see the deepest part of her. But when she finally forced herself to turn around, the sight shocked her. Every single person in the restaurant was silent, completely silent. Not a whisper, not a clink of dishes, not a rustle of clothes, nothing. Even the children at the family table stared at her with wide eyes, as if they had witnessed something rare and magical. The manager stood frozen near the counter, his mouth slightly open. The chefs leaned against the doorframe of the kitchen, forgetting the food on the stove. The world seemed to hold its breath. And then Mira saw him, the billionaire. He wasn't standing stiff and cold like before. He wasn't judging her or analyzing her like a businessman measuring numbers. Instead, there was something new in his eyes, something human, something that looked dangerously close to admiration, even respect. He didn't clap. He didn't speak. He simply nodded, slowly, deeply, as if saying he understood something he didn't know he was missing until that moment. But Mira didn't feel pride. She felt scared. She stood from the piano too quickly, her legs unsteady. Her breath came in short bursts. The room felt too quiet, too heavy. Everyone's attention pressed against her skin, and she wanted to run. The billionaire noticed immediately. He stepped forward, his voice softer than anyone expected. "Mira," he said, "you played beautifully." She shook her head. No, I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to move people?" he asked gently. "Because you did." Her eyes filled with tears. She tried hard to blink away. She didn't want to cry in front of strangers. She didn't want sympathy. She didn't want to relive the memories the music had awakened. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I shouldn't have played." "You needed to," he said. "How do you know what I need?" she asked sharply, surprising even herself. The billionaire didn't flinch. "Because I saw your hands. They were searching for something. And they found it." Mira stepped back, shaking her head again. "Playing brings back memories. Memories that hurt." He studied her face for a moment, his expression softening. "Pain does not disappear by hiding from it." She didn't answer. She didn't want to hear wisdom from the man who had forced her into this. Even if part of her knew he hadn't meant harm. The customers finally began to move. Slowly, softly, as if waking from a dream. A quiet murmur spread through the room, gentle comments, amazed whispers, a few emotional sighs. But they were careful, as if respecting the moment. A woman near the back wiped a tear from her cheek. A man placed a hand on his heart. An elderly couple whispered to each other with soft smiles. Mira realized they weren't judging her. They were touched deeply. It should have comforted her, but instead it made her chest feel tight. All these people had seen a part of her she tried to bury. The billionaire stepped one more pace closer. His voice lowered to a level only she could hear. "Tell me," he said. "Who taught you to play like that?" Mira felt everything inside her collapse inward for a moment. Memories stormed through her mind, her teacher, her competitions, her late-night practices, and then the person she lost. The person whose memory made her quit music forever. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. My father, she whispered. It was the first time she had said his name aloud in years. The billionaire nodded slowly, as if this answered more than the question. The room remained quiet around them, but something had shifted. Mira had opened the door to her past, and now, whether she liked it or not, the story behind her silence was ready to come out. For a long moment after Mira whispered, "My father," the billionaire said nothing. He simply stood there, watching her with a level of patience that didn't match his reputation. The room slowly returned to movement, soft forks, quiet conversations, careful footsteps, yet the space around Mira felt frozen in its own bubble of memory. She wiped her hands on her apron, trying to ground herself, but her fingers still shook. The piano behind her seemed to glow with the weight of her confession. She hadn't spoken about her father in years. No one at the restaurant knew about him, about who he was, or what he meant to her. The billionaire broke the silence first. "You played as if he taught you with love," he said softly. Mira's breath hitched. "He did. He believed in me more than anyone else." Her voice was thin, fragile, yet filled with warmth that came alive only when she spoke of him. The billionaire studied her carefully. "What happened?" She looked down at the keys. Again, they reflected her face, the uncertainty, the fear, the longing. She hadn't meant to reveal so much, but the music had torn open a door she wasn't ready to close again. "When I was younger," she began slowly, "my father used to sit beside me during every practice. He never missed a lesson. He said music wasn't just sound. He said it was a way to speak when words were not enough." The billionaire nodded, listening more closely than she expected. "I wanted to be a concert pianist," Mira continued. "I worked hard every day. I traveled to competitions. My father came with me to every single one. He said I had a gift." Her voice cracked at the last word, but then she swallowed hard. "He got sick, very sick. I stopped playing to take care of him. I thought it would only be temporary, but it wasn't. He just kept getting weaker." The restaurant quieted again as people nearby tried to listen without appearing obvious. Myra's eyes grew wet. "One night he asked me to play for him. He said he wanted to hear his favorite piece. The one he said made him feel alive." She shook her head slowly, her voice trembling. "I tried, but I couldn't finish. I broke down in the middle, and I never touched the piano again after that night." The billionaire exhaled deeply, almost as if absorbing her pain. "It wasn't your fault," he said. "It felt like it was," Mira whispered. "The music reminded me of losing him. Every note hurt. Every sound felt like a goodbye." She covered her mouth briefly, holding in the emotion. "I took this job because I wanted something quiet. Something far away from music. I thought it would protect me from remembering. And yet you still look at the piano every time you walk past it," the billionaire said gently. Myra froze. Because he was right. She had tried to avoid it, but her eyes always drifted toward the piano, even before today. It was like a part of her was always listening for a forgotten melody, hoping it would come back. "I look because I miss him," she admitted. "I miss who I was when he was alive." The billionaire stepped closer, but not in a way that felt threatening. His presence softened. "Mira," he said, "you muted an entire room with one song. People with ordinary talent don't do that. People with broken hearts don't do that. Only someone with a deep connection to music can silence a room the way you did." She blinked, startled by the intensity of his words. "You think I still have something left?" she asked quietly. "I know you do," he replied firmly. "Your father would not want his gift to die with him. He would want you to play." Her eyes filled again, but this time the pain mixed with a strange new feeling, hope. A soft, uncertain hope that scared her as much as it comforted her. Before she could answer, a round of gentle applause rose from the customers. Not loud, not overwhelming. Just soft, respectful claps from people who had been.